COOGS House. The Houston Cougars are partial Big 12 champions today after a big win over Central Florida. Let's jump into breaking it all down.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, here to break down all things Cougs. If you're a U of H fan or just a hater who came to stop by, and I weirdly have a feeling with the landscape of Big 12 right now, there might be a few of those as well. Make sure you subscribe down below. Then we list on Cougs in your newsfeed each and every day. Appreciate you making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day, or in this case, if you're staying up late with us, maybe your last listen of the night. This is Cougars After Dark. This is also serving as the Thursday episode to recap the UCF game. If you're listening to it on audio platforms, again, if you just found us on YouTube and you don't know what to say, you're just dumbfounded at the conversation, hit subscribe. Helps us to the next marker at 2,500. Like, comment the videos. Let us know you're in a contest. Give something away when we get there. If you don't know what to say, tell us down below what your favorite superpower is, because I think LJ Cryer and Jamal Shed might be superheroes. Now, in today's episode, brought to you by our partners at FanDuel, I do want to talk some about, first of all, the Big 12 Conference and what it means to be a partial or have a share of the Big 12 Championship. More on that, obviously, this weekend, potentially. Lots of that in the first segment. Second segment, I want to talk about in this game, the Houston Cougars, LJ Cryer having a clutch gene, what that means for the Cougars on Wednesday night, and what that means moving forward. And last but not least, I want to talk about the toughness and leadership displayed. There were just so many examples of this very culture-heavy, Sampson proud Houston Cougar men's basketball team on Wednesday night. But first and foremost, let's talk some about the Big 12. As I mentioned, Houston knocks off Central Florida on the road to officially take a partial share, at least, of the Big 12 regular season title. Houston at 27-3, 14-3 in conference, can finish no worse than tied for first with Iowa State, who obviously they split with home and home. I believe, by my understanding, Houston actually would get the 1 seed if they tied this thing up. Both teams play again on Saturday. Houston plays Kansas at home. That game is a de facto Big 12 championship game now. If Houston wins that, they win the conference outright. Okay, that's a big, big part of this, because if Houston wins that one, that's a win and win the conference kind of game. Kansas is too far behind and cannot win the conference in the regular season anyway. So we're knocking them out. They've won the conference how many bajillion years in a row now. Something poetic about doing it, cutting down nets. I guess we're always cutting down a net this Saturday, actually, because it is a at least partial conference championship, no matter what the outcome is. But beating them, cutting down nets on senior day for Jamal and Jaywan and a great senior class would be tremendous. I should point out with the COVID year, actually, each senior in this class can technically come back. That's neither here nor there. That's the way that they win the thing outright. Now, if they don't beat Kansas, if something goes awry, if they decide to sit the starters and just rest up for the rest of March or whatever, which I wouldn't do this Saturday, but you could do, then they could still win the conference outright with a loss by Iowa State. Iowa State plays at Kansas State. Kansas State is having a bit of a rougher year. They're 7-10 in the conference thus far, 17-13 overall. I would point out that is a true blue rivalry game. I would imagine that you see all of the extra kind of stuff brought out on that one there in the Little Apple. Got a handful of comments here. Let's see. Go Cougs from Edison. BYU blew it. So what Matt's alluding to there is the reason we went live so late after on Wednesday night was there was a chance had BYU beaten Iowa State on Wednesday night and they were up for a lot of the game in Ames, Iowa, that BYU would have knocked off Iowa State. Houston would have had the championship outright going into Saturday. They didn't have, regardless of the outcomes on Saturday. Yes, BYU did blow it. Good call there, Matt. Go Cougs. Congratulations. Cougs, we got Germans here. Okay, I actually really like Bavaria. We should talk sometime. Congratulations, Go Cougs from Houston Cougars, Germany. Max here asks about injuries and are we built to last through them? What I will say is if Houston wins the conference outright, they probably get a number 1 seed regardless of how the conference tournament goes. What I could see happening is through rotation, not through calling off the dogs necessarily, but I could see the Big 12 tournament being a time where Houston decides to rest some guys because they feel like the worst they'll fall to is 4th overall, and that still gets a 1 seed in the conference tournament or in the NCAA tournament. And so that's the bigger deal. The conference tournament maybe isn't as big a deal. I also, for what's worth, and this actually nice segue. Thanks for the segue, Max. I actually, for what it's worth, feel like a regular season conference championship that Houston just won a partial share of at the very least is much more meaningful than a conference tournament championship. Now, I don't know that it's more fun. Again, there's a weird outcome where Houston wins the conference outright on Saturday without winning the game. But I do think it's more meaningful because it's a larger sample size. You played the whole conference. You played lots of home games, lots of road games over a long stretch of time, or even playing conference games since January at this point. We're in the first part of March. It's a bigger sample, and it's a more authentic look at how you fit into the conference. Conference tournament could be you got hot for 3 days, right? Or someone rolled an ankle and didn't get to play for 2 of them. And we saw Marcus Sasser with his groin just last conference tournament in the American Athletic Conference last year, right? I mean, that kind of thing happens all the time in conference tournaments. Winning the regular season indicates you were in charge of the thing for the much bigger portion of it. And I think it's just so impressive to think like where we were. I haven't listened to Go Cougs or Pod Slam or any other post-game folks yet. I try to get my own show out before it, and I want to be influenced, right? But I always like to listen to Galen talk in these moments because Galen, for what it's worth, was kind of the start of this whole thing, right? I mean, brings in high-ranked recruit, et cetera, great basketball player from the city of Houston, does the for the city thing and stays home, right? And look at how this thing has grown up. Look where this thing has grown into in the time since he's been here, right? Houston has gone from being a good team to being a good mid-major team to winning the American Athletic Conference year in, year out till now. It's kind of a big deal when they are even close in the basketball game, right? There were people freaking out that Houston was down 3 on the road in a Big 12 game at halftime, right? Expectations are through the roof for this program. It's kind of insane, and frankly, they've earned all of it, and they continue to live up to all of it, right? Now, where my expectations are, Max, for the current program with these injuries, I'm trying my best to just enjoy the ride, right? I know that injuries do alter, depth does alter where the expectations might have been in November, right? Before Terrence got hurt, or in January before Ramon got hurt, or 10 days ago before JoJo got hurt, right? Obviously that changes things a lot, but as I'm sitting here right now, I am really trying to just enjoy the fact that this team won the best conference in college basketball in their first year in it. The University of Houston's official Twitter account was putting out receipt tweets where they found people that had said Houston would never win the Big 12, right? I tried to find a couple on some comments on old John Rothstein tweets, but it's so absurd. In my most optimistic self, I didn't think it would be quite like this, where they're sitting here at 14-3 in the conference, right? I remember telling you very upfront, and my expectation was the ceiling was win your home games, win half your road games. Well, they've done a lot better than that, right? If you win your home games, win half your road games in the conference, last year that would have roughly put you where Kansas was when they won the conference. Houston's doing better than that this season in a 14-team conference. They've had some crazy road tests at Baylor, at Texas, won both of those, at Kansas. I know a fellow got a doors blown off. That was a 13-point game, and that was the low light of the season. Things are absolutely crazy to see that that's where this program is, and obviously a lot more in the Big 12 Conference after Saturday, because we'll have an official how it finished up after that Kansas game. I was hoping to have that tonight. Kansas is a difficult matchup, especially with low forward depth with JoJo being out. Max adds that he thinks that Kansas hopes that they're not our Big 12 kryptonite. I do think that having the forwards and the size they've got offers some challenges. I weirdly think that that's the same way with Iowa State. They have 6'7" guys that play on the perimeter at both schools or taller. That offers a bit of a challenge. But I will say that I actually, and I mentioned this in Monday's episode, that I think that Sed's a pretty good matchup for Dickinson as far as, he's not going to get out athleted. And he's a big, strong guy that Dickinson has to deal with. Now, I've talked a lot about the conference, and we got more on the conference coming later. But I want to talk some about Wednesday night's game because, frankly, it took Wednesday night game to get the conference because Houston's rolling around like a well-oiled machine. And if you have a well-oiled machine, but you need some new parts, you need to go to ebaymotors.com because passion, drive, and patience are what brings home the winning trophy and what also keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and the eBay Motors guaranteed fit. Your parts guaranteed to fit your ride or die every time, or your money back, because the eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need, the price you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win like Houston did on Wednesday night. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. It's only available to U.S. customers. All right, so I said in talking about Wednesday night's game against UCF, the big win over Central Florida, I wanted to really kind of highlight L.J. Cryer and his clutch gene, but I think Jamal Shed did it best. In the fun of the postgame, Jamal tweeted, "If you know, you know," at L.J. Cryer. He had retweeted the Houston men's basketball page's highlight clip of Cryer scoring 25 points. And then the picture that, the GIF, I should say, that Jamal Shed attached to it is Batman staring down the bat signal. And that's, I guess I described it fairly poorly, but that's for the audio audience. I have to say, I think that's the best visual I can think of. At a crucial moment in the second half, when Houston's kind of stalling, they're hovering around, tie game, 2-point difference, 4-point difference. L.J. Cryer went on a 7-0 run on his own, had a couple nice floaters, a 3-ball, etc., on some movement stuff. He had 25 total points, 5 threes. He got his floater. He had this tremendous play that I kind of think was the dagger in the basketball game when he pump faked on the 3, got to the lane, had his defender on his hip, and kind of spun around to the little 10-foot fadeaway, right? We don't see him get into the paint for more than a somewhat open layup all that often. And to see Cryer go to something deeper in his bag that we hadn't really seen much this year, Houston Cougar uniform, was shocking in the best way possible. But it also kind of felt like, okay, Central Florida can't do anything to stop him. There's nothing they can do, right? There's no body they're going to put on him. There's no defense they can run. They double him. Jamal Shed took over, and that would also be, I say, an impact of what L.J. Cryer brought to Houston on Wednesday night. I would stress again, he did lead all scorers with his 25 points. For what it's worth, there are 3 other starters that finished in double figures. Jamal Shed had 16 points and 8 assists. Several of those were to Cryer in the final 10 minutes of the game. Jaywan Roberts finished with 12 points and 7 rebounds with just one hand, I guess we should probably add. And Xavier Francis would finish with 10 points, including a pair of emphatic dunks that kind of sealed the deal for Houston. But what makes Cryer's 25 a little different, it's not just that it's more, but Cryer has very much become the guy as we head into March Madness where when Houston needs scoring, he's the guy they go to. Okay, whether it's on the road at Oklahoma, amidst boos at Baylor, up at Kansas, or up at BYU earlier this season, whatever the case may be, when Houston needs scoring, he's the guy they lean on, and he's the guy that does. Again, 23 points just over the weekend against Oklahoma. 15 at Baylor the weekend before, again, when he was getting the berating that he got coming back to Baylor as a former Baylor Bear, right? I know it was at home, but he had 26 against Texas in a game that was probably closer than it needed to be. And Christ said, we're still going to win this basketball game. Um, Houston did not beat Kansas, but again, worth pointing out, he had 24 points in that one. And then the first conference road win of the season at BYU, a hostile environment up there in Provo, one I'm still fairly impressed with. I mean, jumped off the screen, kind of rowdy environment. He showed up and got 23 in that one. Each time Houston has fallen back into the ropes, needs to get off the ropes or get up off the mat and do something to throw a punch back at an opponent, especially when it's been on the road. It's been LJ Cryer. And I know that he had a rough shooting slump for like a 3-game stretch. And people are like, well, he only had like 8 in this one game or 7. But what I would say is a shooter shoots. And he always got these same looks. That indicates to me that Houston was always saying, hey, he's going to be the guy. And more times than not, clearly, for your Big 12 champion Cougars, he showed up, right? He did the thing. He made the baskets. And I want to wrap this segment before talking about other guys, because he was not the only tremendous performer Wednesday night. That's why you go get LJ Cryer. That's why when LJ Cryer has transfer portal, you put all your chips in on him. That's why, frankly, Houston and LJ are the perfect fit. LJ comes back home. The kid's from Katy Morton Ranch. He's out of Baylor. He's on the national title team in 2021, but been a much bigger impact player on their team since then. And it's always been a little fishy to me that when he got to Baylor, or when he got to Houston after leaving Baylor, he said something to the effect of like he wanted somewhere where he could play some point guard, right? And I interpreted that at the time, honestly, as like, well, he saw what Marcus and Jamal did and how Marcus could like play the point guard on some sets and play the shooting guard on some sets, and that yin and yang that they had, you could just replace them, right? They're both tremendous shooters. Mark's a little bit better off the bounce. Frankly, LJ's probably a bit better in catch and shoot. And honestly, I think I was wrong because I think I was giving the truth too much credit. I think LJ's being nice. I think what LJ really wanted to do is he wanted to come back and win these types of games, because he said that winning these types of games is important. But he wanted to do it with Houston across his chest. He has fit in as perfectly as anyone could fit in. He's not the best perimeter defender on the team, but he sure is a lot better today than he was in December, right? And I think what's interesting is like to watch the way he is intentionally and like creatively and through work, like hard work and those kind of things, force his way into being a key part of Houston Cougar culture. Like he does not stand out as like different from the things we do in any way. And I know Baylor's had a great program and Scott Drew's probably a Hall of Fame coach and but cultures are different amongst even the most elite programs. I mean, Houston finds Houston guys, Baylor finds Baylor guys, Carolina finds Carolina guys, and LJ forced his way into being a Houston guy because he wants to do it, I would argue, with Houston across his chest, right? And that's really, really important for him. Now, for us, finding that guy in the transfer portal is huge. I know some people love the transfer portal. Some people hate the transfer portal. Some people are high on it. Some people are low on it. But finding a guy, because Kelvin Sampson is so specific on the kinds of guys he finds, a guy that will fit in, a guy that will help, but a guy that, frankly, has been through these Big 12 environments before and has done this thing before, and you can lean on when your back's against the ropes or you're on the tarp, right? From a scoring perspective, obviously, Jamal Shed does so many other things, and he can score some too, right? But having a guy a shooter, a guy that you can run off and say, hey, I need a cold-blooded dagger here. Fine LJ, right? Fine LJ, fine LJ, fine LJ. I love it. And I think it's really, really important to the success of this team, obviously, not just because he gets the bulk of the points. Someone else could make shots, right? You could distribute that somehow, add 4 here, add 8 there, right? The fact that he does it kind of in broken sets, hey, we're going to run you off a flare screen, catch it, and make something happen, and he gets buckets, right? And when the three's not falling, he attacks the rim, he gets fouls, he gets free throws. It's so, so important to what Houston's doing this season that, as Jamal Shed said best, he's kind of Batman. Now, he's not the only guy that had a big-time performance over the weekend, and I want to spend some time talking about everyone else as well, but I want to talk about our newest buddies at Amazon Fire, because as you can tell, I always have the TV on next to me with basketball on. Most of the time I'm recording. Basketball's on my TV all the time, and Amazon Fire helps me do it. Fire TV is a great way to watch basketball. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, and as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball, the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV as a sports fan. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. This show will be on Fire TV at some point. Just check the schedule. Go get it right now. Trust me, you won't regret it. Fire TV channels let you dive into the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out all Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. Learn more at Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. I know I'm probably spend a lot of time on the Fire TV is a really great product. I can't just stress that enough. I've got basketball on it all the time. All right. In the UCF game, LJ Cryer was the guy that won the game. I mean, once he kind of broke Central Florida with that mid-range jump shot on the turnaround, they kind of felt like, what are we supposed to do here? How are we supposed to stop this guy? Can we stop this guy? But I would point out there were also 3 or 4 or 7 guys that displayed incredible toughness that, frankly, were just not going to lose that basketball game, right? First of whom is Jaywan Roberts. Now, Jaywan had the stitches in his hand from over the weekend and had it bandaged up. He had a sleeve over it so you could kind of blend it in on TV, but was clearly in pain. And when I say clearly in pain, I should also point out that, and I would coach my guys to do something very similar too. I don't mean this you saying UCF is dirty, but whenever the opportunity arose, UCF was quick to tap, poke, pry, a little love in on that injured hand of Jaywan Roberts just to make sure he remembered it was hurt, right? The toughness to play through that, for a full 38 minutes, getting 12 points and 7 rebounds is not easily found across sports, not just college sports, across life. People aren't just naturally that tough. That's learned behavior from one Jaywan Roberts. And I think that he was determined to not lose that game. He could have folded. He could have said, you know what, I'm going to take a game off, let my stitches heal. I'll see y'all Saturday. We'll chat later. But team needed him. A lot on the line. That's not who Jaywan. Jaywan's not a guy that takes games off like that. He's out there, right? I should mention, this is the same Jaywan Roberts that is getting his knee drained every 2 weeks, right? This is a guy that's just demonstrated toughness his entire Houston Cougar career, will be honored on Senior Day on Saturday, but has a COVID year to come back if he wants, right? So all things considered, I know there are a lot of guys that feel like they could be the face of the Kelvin Sampson iteration of Houston Cougar basketball. But as Jaywan continues to play toughness in moment after moment after moment this season, it's hard not to think of him as one of those guys as well. And again, he had tough rebounds, tough tip-ins, etc. all throughout this game. But I think the thing that sticks out to me is how many times you saw him on the floor after diving for a loose ball or a rebound, holding that right hand, grimacing, and then popping right back up. I can't get over that, right? Other types of toughness, I'd point out Emmanuel Sharp in his return to Orlando. He's from Florida, right? Went to high school in Florida, I should say. Played for his dad in high school. He played for his dad in high school. Coach's kid. And clearly had the yips as far as shot did not fall for him. He was the only starter to not hit double figures. He had 4 points on 1 of 7 from the field. And what he clearly decided at some point about the 3-minute mark in, when he was like, okay, I've shot twice, shot's not falling today, is it's going to be his turn to find a way to impact the game in a bunch of other ways. Great defense, rebounds, steals. Sharp finished with 3 rebounds and 2 steals and an assist. I also point out he guarded Jalen Sellers for large stretches of the game. Sellers is a big part of what they do over Central Florida. Emmanuel Sharp played 29 minutes with only scoring 4 points. And frankly, I think the fact that Kelvin kept him in, even though he only scored 4 points, is notable because a year ago, that was not the case. Emmanuel came in, he shot, he missed, he sat, right? Emmanuel proved he can do other things, and that creates it comes out of a sort of mental toughness that I don't think we should take for granted. And then last but not least, in terms of toughness, I think we just got to mention, we can't move past JVR, man. So I don't know if y'all saw the clip in a play where he actually gets blown by on defense because of it. He rolled his ankle in a way that, like, I assume was going to be a sprain done for the day at least, right? His ankle bit like backwards. The visual audience has seen me trying to mimic this with my hand, but he like started dragging his toe and then it like clicked, like his foot just like very suddenly jerked back, like, ooh, drug it too far, right? And he was on the ground writhing in pain, not unlike Jaywan Roberts. And he like goes to the bench and is hobbled somewhat. Houston goes small, right? They put Malik Wilson as a small ball 4 and put Jaywan at the 5. But what they did is then you see him on the bench. They show a clip on TV of him walking back to the locker room. And then suddenly, after showing the clip of him walking back to the locker room, the next like sequence, he's in the game, right? And it's when did that happen? And then suddenly he comes in, he gets a big dunk on a feed from Jamal Shed. There was a riser guy went from the corner to free throw and extended to pull the defense up. And then he hit JVR on the roll from the pick and roll, obviously with no help side defender because the guy just came up. Easy dunk. Then he comes down and gets a block at the defensive end. And then the very next play on offense, Houston shoots the ball, rebound goes out of bounds, get a baseline and a bounds play. I think it was Sharp. Someone missed a shot, and he dunks a putback, right? JVR Francis dunks a putback. And it's like, okay, he went dunk, block, dunk. I think the ankle's okay, right? I don't know if he tied it extra tight or whatever. If John Houston had some magic tape back there or something. But clearly, toughness to play through an in-game injury is not lost on him either, right? Each of these instances helped Houston win the game in a game that, frankly, it would have been easy to fold up and say, hey, we'll just take care. We'll go get Kansas on Saturday. We'll be fine. We'll be fine, right? I'd point out that tough defense forced 18 Central Florida turnovers. Houston scored 22 of their 67 points. I'm not great at math, but that's about a third of their points off of those 18 turnovers. Points to the paint, Houston dominated because on top of the majority of their transition points, turnovers being in the paint, they also had a total of 32 points in the paint, getting the ball down low, and the jump shots are not falling. Outside of LJ Cryer, if my math serves me right, they hit. So Houston was 8 of 24 from threes. LJ Cryer was 5 of 11. So that means the rest of the team was 3 of 13, right? It's pretty bad. Shooting on the road is hard, but that's pretty bad, right? And I have to think that in a lot of ways, honestly, the defense turning into offense and all that, while it wasn't as dominant an effort as the first time we saw Central Florida at home, it certainly was an important part of this win. I could talk about Malik Wilson coming out to play this game. He did have some impressive stretches and some important parts, but with how Central Florida played, Houston had to play a lot of bigs, and that really didn't leave a whole lot of room for small ball 4s, except for when Francis was out hurt. And frankly, it was impressive to see. Francis got his first foul early and only had 2 in the game. Jaywan had his first foul early and a second foul before halftime. Only had 3 in the game. The guy in foul trouble was Emmanuel Sharp, and that's because he was covering the ball dominant players there at Central Florida. Again, impressive defensive toughness. Now, sites for Houston, they'll probably get back about 2 or 3 a.m., if not later, from Orlando. Thursday, they'll probably break this one down. And then Friday, I don't even know how hard they can really go because then they turn and play an afternoon game, 3 o'clock in the afternoon against Kansas on Saturday. This game is really, really cool from the aspect of watching when this program is gone, right? Houston went from having trouble filling Hofheinz 10 years ago to now on the final regular season Saturday of college basketball. They're in one of the marquee matchups. I mean, in every ESPN advertisement, Houston, Kansas as Duke, Carolina. I mean, like, that is the game of the day. It's got its own time slot at 3 o'clock Central Time. It's impressive to see where this program's gone from that perspective. What we're doing here at Locked On Cougs is we're going to do this show, obviously. You heard this one. Then tomorrow, so if you're listening to this on Thursday morning, Friday's episode, we're doing all things about how to fix things from the first Kansas game. I've been watching them a little bit since last time Houston played. They've had their own skids and stuff as well. Most notable thing is that they play a lot different on the road than at home. So we're breaking down that at Locked On Cougs on Friday. Saturday, we'll watch the game. Depending on some things, we'll see if we can get a live one out Saturday night or not. We shall see. And then, obviously, we got to get ready for the Big 12 tournament. All kinds of chaos in the next week. It's not really scheduled. Hard to talk about what's going to be coming down the line because the Big 12 tournament is like hard to predict in any way, form, or fashion. I mean, it's the best basketball conference in America playing a bunch of single game samples, a bunch of, who got hot on that day, whose shoelaces weren't tied quite right, et cetera, right? So that's the next week. March Madness starts the week after. That's the fun. Here each and every day at Locked On Cougs. I should point out the football team is playing spring practices. Probably got to talk about that at some point as well. So hit subscribe. Thank you for joining us live. That's what you did. If you're listening to us on audio platform, thank you as well. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Cougs is proud of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, our number one Cougs, our best team in the Big 12, Houston Cougars, each and every day. Go Cougs.